Well, welcome to Halifax Public Gardens. This is the oldest Victorian garden in all of Canada, or Victorian garden of British origin in all of Canada. It has a twin gardens. The other one is in Bouchard Gardens in Victoria, BC. Has anybody been there? Okay, so now you've visited the one on the East Coast as well. You're complete. This was important to Haligonians right from the founding in 1749 because it was the only access to fresh water anywhere on the peninsula. So people used to come here, get their drinking water. Garrisons used to gather. Eventually it flourished into a community gardening area, and during the Victorian era it was a beautiful place to display the latest fashion and have romantic walks during the evenings. And a number of distilleries opened up in this area to take advantage of the springs and grottos here. They opened up on this street called South Park Street. Today it is sort of shrunk in size, and it's only 18 acres that are left, but that's about 5 city blocks, square blocks, and it's got local and exotic flora and fauna. A lot of the flowers have been removed now and put into greenhouses, those perennials. And some of the tropical plants as well. But there are many species of trees that we see here too, and we'll see some nice colors as we walk through. That park was dedicated, that we saw on the motorcoach on the way up. And these 3 statues were added to the gardens, including this bandstand was constructed here as well. So it was quite a high time of celebration. And the design is Victorian, basic Victorian in nature. The top has been replaced. It was replaced in 1971. It was a wood, originally a wood construction, and it kept rotting because of our damp, cold winters. And they put a copper top on it. This is a very famous spot in front of this pond. I'll talk about the pond first. We're quite hospitable in Halifax and always have been. And so we felt guilty. We named this pond after an Irishman by the name of Griffin. We felt guilty because we had to hang him on this island out here. He got in a tavern brawl and beat some fellow over the head with a lead pipe and killed him, so we hung him here in the 1830s. That's the only sorrowful part about this park. This spot is very famous because in 1945 there were 2 British airmen, and they were sitting on a bench, not that bench, but a bench similar to that nature, right in that spot. And they had had lunch, and they had a bottle of beer, and they had their neckties undone, relaxing, and they were having an after-lunch ice cream. And Winston Churchill walked up with Lord Mountbatten and the British chiefs of staff, and immediately the men sort of jumped to attention, and they held out their ice creams. They were sitting there shaking with their ice creams. And Winston Churchill said, "At ease, men. You know, this doesn't have to be formal." And they started chatting, and Winston Churchill actually gave them 2 of his cigars. The people started to gather and see the commotion, and Winston Churchill had to send his driver back to the front of the gates and get more cigars out of the car to bring them up. So he continued passing them out, and in the headlines in the Halifax Herald the next day it ran, "Cigars won't be smoked." So I'm sure there's still people that have cigars still on their mantelpieces in an attic somewhere in Halifax. Churchill was here because he was returning from the Quebec Conference, where he met with Roosevelt to plan the D-Day invasions, and himself and Lord Mountbatten and the British chiefs of staff were actually heading back here, and he had heard about this beautiful Victorian gardens, as well as he wanted to see a replica of the St. Mary's, which he actually came across on, and there was a small replica of that ship that had been floating in that pond up until about 5 years ago. So he actually came to see that as well. And he was actually returning not on the St. Mary's, but he was returning by a British warship with a full escort. I wanted to show you at least close up one of the statues. There's 2 in this park. There's an infant